Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we're chatting with David Benjatschek. David is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience. He spent 15 years at Shell, contributing significantly to the Canadian transport sector through various roles. David transitioned to training new leaders across North America with national seminars, eventually creating his own leadership platform, Building Capacity. An accomplished author, David has written 2 books on leadership. He now owns Learn Photography Canada, offering hands-on photography coaching. David lives in Calgary with his wife, Donna, and their 2 daughters. So David, first of all, welcome to the show. And do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about what you're doing and who you are?
Thanks so much, Matt. Yes, so you mentioned Learn Photography Canada. I am a person that cannot stay in one corner at the time, but the commonality to what I do on both fronts is people. And so with Learn Photography Canada, we do in-person. There's a lot of online stuff today in person. One-on-one or small group coaching, helping people learn how to use their DSLR cameras, whatever brand model they happen to have. And that is awesome because what happens in a photography class compared to the other thing that I do is that it's cool because you teach people 2 certain steps on a camera. They take a picture, they get a result immediately, and you can see this like, yes. And I love that. This is so cool to get that immediate reaction. So I love building confidence in people through that particular activity. And I am a commercial photographer. I do weddings with my wife. The other side of me, as you mentioned, is building capacity workshops. So I worked about just under 15 years for national seminars. And that took me around the world, places like Abu Dhabi, Puerto Rico, throughout North America, teaching new leaders, young leaders, the skills and more or less the platform that they can use to be successful in a leadership role. And that is something that I really enjoy doing as well. And again, it's people focused. So between photography and speaking, the main goal is people, but it keeps me all right busy, which is great.
Yeah, no doubt. And kind of a unique blend there, right? Between like the leadership, training, speaking, and photography.
Can I just talk to that for 1 second? Because that's what's interesting, right? Being a person, I have never been formally diagnosed as ADD, but I'm like a squirrel looking at nuts in a tree, and it's like, I get excited about stuff pretty easily. It was pretty hard telling people that I'm a photographer and a speaker, because when I tell people I'm a speaker and they're looking for a photographer, they're going, are you really creative enough to photograph that special day of my life? And then when I tell people that I'm also a photographer, but they're hiring me for speaker, it's like, are you going to give me meat in my speech, or is this going to be all fluff? But as is cool in life, the 2 have come together. And so I've had a couple companies now basically hire me to come in and photograph the authenticity of their workplace. And so I've had the chance to go in and capture their people at work and try to tell the story through images about who they are. And authenticity is a big part of my leadership training. So the next step will be to tie those photographs into really getting specific with companies around, saying, this is your authenticity. And the best way to be successful is shout out so loudly who you are that your fans find you, and the people you weren't meant to serve that are going to cost you money stay away. So the 2 are coming together, which I love.
Very interesting. Where did the passion let me try this again. Where did the passion for photography come from for you?
It came from a beautiful woman. So I was married to a beautiful lady from Singapore. We got married when I was 29 years old. We were married for 7 years, and unfortunately, she passed away. She had a brain aneurysm here in Calgary, and we didn't have any kids yet. Long story short, 2 years later, I met Donna, my current wife, and I met this beautiful woman who carried a camera. She was a wedding photographer. I was still working at Shell at the time. And when you meet a beautiful woman that carries a camera, you buy one. And so my unofficial proposal to her was the purchase of a Nikon camera at London Drugs. And then I took my diploma at SAIT. When I left Shell, because I always served the transport sector, there was always this cool transport calendar down south called Super Rigs. They always asked me, because I was marketing manager for Shell Rotella, which is a heavy duty engine oil. My Canadian buddies always asked me, when are we getting a Canadian calendar? And while some Canadians were featured in the US calendar, they wanted their own, but it wasn't going to happen. When I left Shell, I thought to myself, how do I, aside from the weddings I'm helping Donna do, how do I expand my photography? And it was like, okay, I'm going to create that. Since 2008, I've told the story of a people group. I could not do what they do. Trucking is a hard life. But what I love about them is that unlike many occupations, but like farming, I would say, it's not just what they do, it's who they are. It's in their blood. And so no matter how much someone would bitch about doing what they do, try to tell them to do something else.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell that story, and have a 280-pound fully tattooed guy break down in tears and cry in a truck stop because he saw his page and his story, and no one ever understood why he did what he did. That's amazing. That's what gets me up in the morning. So
very cool. Yeah, that's very cool. You talked a little bit about the leadership training through building capacity. As you are touring around there, or when you were touring around and doing different speaking engagements, what did that leadership training look like? Like, what are you really trying to hammer into people or to get them to come away with?
I'll actually take that and run with the learning of 15 years at national seminars and why I built building capacity. And so national seminars offers awesome curriculum, awesome workshops. The workbooks, they're real. They offer really good advice. But here was the scoop. After 15 years, every once in a while, I would follow up some students who would come to me at the end of the workshop and give me a high five and say, that was awesome, Dave, and I know I need to do this and this and this, and the top 3 things they were going to leave and absolutely hammer to get results. And 2 months later, so frequently and most often, if I connected with them, what actually got changed? 0.
Right.
And that's my heart, because I mean, you look at it, Tony Robbins has reached how many billion of people around the planet? Oprah has reached billions of people around the planet. Seth Godin, I love reading his books. He's reached probably 1 billion people around the planet. And it's all valid, hardcore truth. Why hasn't the world changed? It's because there's a gap between knowing what to do and actually doing what you're supposed to do. And I don't teach it because I'm perfect at always doing what I know I should do. I teach it because I understand the pain of the barriers of not doing what you know you should do, and what the true solution is. And to me, that's the environment that we're in. So if it's all up to someone who leaves my workshop to implement the change they now know, and that makes sense to them, and they actually know what the tools are to get it done, if it's all on their shoulders, then you tend to get the 2 months later, nothing's changed. But if they put themselves in an environment that provides support, provides accountability, provides a number of factors, then it's amazing how environments are powerful influencers of the results in our lives. We're all influenced, each one of us. Matt, you come to this podcast, your behaviors today have been influenced by your past environments, your religion and faith, your nationality, your socio background, your friends, your failures, your successes. They all form what you believe is the right thing to do. And so my shtick for both corporate leaders and personal leadership is that if you can see what you want to be and you know what you want to be 3-5 years down the road, then the best way to get there is not necessarily put all the pressure on your shoulder to strive and get better, but is to create and put yourself in the environment that's going to influence those behaviors out of you. Even through your fears, even through your guilt, even through shame, even through all the typical barriers that can get in the way of people doing what they know they should do, but somehow they can't.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So what do people do then? Like how do you help them go from the, wanting to change and knowing you need to change this and this and this to actually going and making sure that that execution is happening and following through?
Yeah, so the building capacity workshops are basically a blueprint of building a house. And so I use the metaphor of building a house, and actually I kind of have fun with the three little pigs. And there's a brick house, and a straw house, and a stick house. And just for example, the straw house, which the big bad wolf very easily huffed and puffed and blew the house down, um, it's a life where it's a wall, a straw wall, in terms of a house where there are no clear expectations, and there are no consequences, and there's no vision. There's no vision for what can be. And so, in that sort of way, it's kind of like, again, the influence of our past environment in Canada. The stats are is that kids rarely vastly surpass the economic health of their parents. They may do a little bit by a little bit by a little bit by a little bit, and that's not a judgment of ability. That's a judgment of vision. What we see becomes what we expect. And so to me, on the one point, to increase our ability to see more, it's not about being smarter. It's simply choosing an environment where on a regular basis you expose yourself to something new. And and as you start to see more, all of a sudden the world gets a whole lot more exciting. A
Yeah.
very simple example, this past Sunday in Calgary, we did a street photography workshop. And I'm the owner of the company and I'm the head coach. I should know it all and see it all, right? No. When you put 5 people together, it's amazing how each one of us saw it differently, but together we created some amazing results. Personal excellence is best developed in community. If it's all up to you, you're in deep, deep trouble.
That's a very interesting quote. I don't think I've heard that before. Personal excellence. What was that? Personal excellence
is best developed in community.
Best developed in community. I really like that one because I agree. The old adage of it takes a village, right? I think
Yes, it
that's the
does.
key.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the things you mentioned on the leadership side was the importance of authenticity within that leadership. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate, whether it's on a corporate basis or on a personal basis, I believe, and I wrote in a book called Authenticity. So that's one of the 2 books that I've published, and it's a pathway to purpose. And it kind of helps people discover, how do I find out who I am? I believe that, each of us has a God-given makeup and we are unique. We have a gift inside of each of us, or many gifts that only we can give, because our perspective, like that street photography workshop, is unlike any others, even looking at the same thing. And so we walk through some steps of, what has your past taught you? To me, the only reason to look back in life is not to regret or to do any of those things, is to learn, because we make good choices, bad choices, and if we learn from the bad choices, they're the second best choice we can make. The worst is running away from choices. And then identifying strengths and weaknesses, and growing strengths and managing weaknesses, with the goal being this: when you're yourself, and people know who you are, your fans will find you. You can start to communicate that. As a photographer, the worst thing I can do as a wedding photographer is try to be everything to everyone, because you end up being nothing to no one.
Interesting. Yeah.
And when people are in their authenticity, this is a big, part of my passion. Too many Canadian workers are at their job solely for the paycheck. And they're great people that have chosen to put and leave themselves in a hellish environment that doesn't utilize who they are. And I don't care where you are in the economic status of, we have a choice. And I love to remind people of that. You have a choice, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, based on who you are, there's that right environment for you. And there's a pathway to get there. And it's a matter of choices, not ability. It's a matter of choices.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you've got these two worlds there from the photography side and then the coaching side. How do you balance those two together, or maybe they're just intertwined so deeply now? What does that look like?
Do you know what? They're a nice break from each other. So I will tell you this, is that during COVID,
Hmm.
you know, both of them went, meow, because traveling on an airplane to a room of 40, 50, 100 people was
Yeah,
verboten and not allowed. And people getting married, there were a few couples that did like two people just getting married, but wedding photography went way down.
yeah,
Um, and I, my life motto is to control what I do control, to influence what I don't. And during COVID, here was the thing: my regular choices were unavailable to me. And I think our attitude in those times in life when we kind of hit some valleys, and a lot of Canadians hit valleys beyond their control during
yeah.
COVID, our attitude's important. And so I did two things. I took on some contract work for automotive photography,
Mm.
which I had never done
Interesting.
before, but
Yeah,
did that. And I took on a contract position teaching photography at Learn Photography Canada. And I knew I was going to enjoy that, but I didn't realize the personal impact it would have on people. Anyways, during COVID, there were days where honestly, automotive photography or coaching, you know what you could be doing,
hmm,
and where I would start to drive, and to be honest, my mindset was not grateful for the day.
yeah, yeah.
and and it's amazing how our attitude, well, attitude determines altitude. Yeah, I would just say, thank you, God, for the work today. And I would say it even though I didn't believe it. And I didn't at the time. And I would just keep saying it. Thanks for the work today, big guy. Thanks for the work today. And the more that I said it, the more my mood changed. And I think I'm known in both those industries just for being an influencer by what I bring to any space in terms of positivity, in terms of peace, in terms of all of those things. And what it led to that I could not have planned. I'm not telling you that I had the 5-year plan to buy Learn Photography Canada. Out of the blue, coming out of COVID, the couple who started, James and Yana, Learn Photography Canada in Calgary, they came to me this phone call and said, we're entrepreneurs. We've loved what we've done, but we want to try something different. How would you like to buy the company?
Mm.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. How did that happen?
And I didn't plan for it. It
Yeah.
wasn't some brilliant business plan, but an attitude of thankfulness, an attitude of praise, an attitude of, it's amazing what it starts to believe. And then, for anyone that's in that situation in their career where they're not sure what's next and they're getting down on themselves, this is often a maligned word, but faith to me, I mean, there's obviously my faith, which is important to me, which relates to God and so on. I'm a Christian, but faith in a broader sense to me is simply, it's confidence in the lack of control, confidence in a lack of control.
Mm.
And what got me through that time, because it was not easy for Don and I during that time, was not only being thankful and just keeping my mood up. And what that did to me, thanks for the work today, thanks for the work today, thanks for the work today. But it was that past history that reminded me that even in the darkest spaces, things tend to be okay. And there will be a morning to the night. And sure enough, there was in one phone call. Dave, how would you like to buy the company? And all of a sudden, it's created the passive income, which we didn't have before. We were both, salaried in a
Mhm.
way. So if we weren't working, there was no paycheck. It's allowed me to use all of my leadership staff to actually own a company. And it's not huge. I have 13 contractors across Canada that are coaches for me. But I get to have a vision, and I have a vision for this, and I get to hire the right people and start to create that atmosphere and that unique identity. Um, it's just been amazing. The road hasn't always been easy, but it's so fulfilling. It's so good.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. What's on the horizon for you, whether it's the rest of this year or over the next couple of years?
Yeah. So You know what? The focus, the primary focus lately, because I bought the company, has been the photography. I still do speaking here and there, and I welcome those opportunities to go in and train leaders. But my life is changing in that my two girls are getting older, and the one's off to University of Alberta next year. The other one is going into high school, so within 3 years we're going to be empty nesters. Donna and I love travel, and so with Learn Photography Canada, what they didn't have and what I've added are photography escapes. So for example, this fall from September 27th to October 3rd, we're taking a bunch of people to go to Vancouver Island. And we're going to go from Victoria up to Courtenay. We're going to take an eco tour up in Courtenay that takes you 3 hours up the inlet to where the bears are feeding on the salmon. I want to add travel back into my life.
Yeah.
I mean, family's number one for me. And so I've dedicated that, and that's taken a back seat. But there are seasons in our life, and now that opportunity to travel is really coming back up again. And it may sound like a photography trip, but as I've learned even through the individual coaching, it's really a chance to speak into people, because we're going to be with 8 people for 7 days. We're going to have a blast. We're going to eat good food. We're going to learn together, laugh together, cry together. And all of the skills that my life has built into me tends to be able to come out in that one space. Yeah. So it'll start in Canada. Definitely want to get back to Italy on a photo trip. That's where our honeymoon was with Donna and I. And so the focus will be on kind of bringing that back into our life.
Awesome. Well, that's great. If somebody wants to find out more about what you're doing, connect with you, where are they going to go for that?
Yeah, so they can go to learnphotographycanada.com. My email is david@learnphotographycanada.com, or they can go to buildingcapacityworkshops.com, and my email is david@buildingcapacityworkshops.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you could translate Matt's pronunciation of my name into a spelling.
We'll have it in, it'll be in the title. I had to spell it out phonetically, but Benjatschek.
There we go. And certainly welcome anyone to connect.
Awesome. We'll certainly appreciate having you on the show today. Wish you all the best of luck in the future there, David.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.